There are moments, rare moments, when time itself seems to hold its breath. Moments when something unseen begins to shift, when the weight you've been carrying suddenly feels different, not lighter yet, but looser, as if something is about to break. And if you felt that recently, if you've woken up with a strange mix of exhaustion and quiet anticipation, then this message is not random. This is your confirmation. Because July 9th is not just another date on a calendar. It is a marked moment in the spirit. And you were meant to hear this before it arrives. Archangel Michael is not speaking casually right now. He is not whispering in the background of your life. And no, he is stepping forward with authority, with urgency, with precision. And what he is revealing carries a weight that your spirit has already begun to recognize, even if your mind is still trying to catch up. Something is in him. But here's what most people don't understand. Endings are not always peaceful. They are not always quiet. Sometimes, the end of a difficult season feels just as intense, just as confusing, just as heavy as the season itself. And that's exactly why this message had to reach you now, before July 9th, not after. Because if you misread this moment, you might mistake the final shaking for failure. You might think, why is it still hard? You might wonder, why hasn't it changed yet? You might even feel like giving up right before everything shifts. And that is exactly what the enemy hopes you do. But listen carefully, because this is where the truth begins to rise. What you've been going through, the delays, the emotional weight, the silent battles no one else could see, none of it has been random. None of it has been wasted. There has been a divine clock counting down behind the scenes, a spiritual alignment taking place beyond your awareness. And July 9th is a key moment where that alignment begins to manifest. You felt it, haven't you? That strange sense that something is about to change, but you can't explain how. The quiet voice inside you saying, hold on just a little longer. A tension between wanting to rest and feeling like you must stay alert. That's not anxiety. That's spiritual awareness. Because heaven had been preparing a shift and your spirit is picking up on it before your circumstances do. Archangel Michael speaks now, not as a distant figure, but as a present guardian over your season. His voice carries both strength and warning. Do not fall asleep in this final hour. Do not lose focus now. For what you have endured is reaching its conclusion. But your posture in this moment will determine how you step into what comes next. You see, many people pray for the end of a difficult season, but they are not prepared for the transition out of it. Because transition requires awareness. Transition requires stillness. Transition requires you to stay connected even when you feel tired. And right now you are standing in that exact space. This is the space between what was and what is about to be. And it is sacred. But it is also sensitive. Because in this space distractions increase. Doubts get louder. Old thoughts try to return. People may act differently. Situations may feel uncertain. Not because things are falling apart, but because something is being rearranged. You are not going backward. You are being repositioned. And July 9th marks the beginning of that visible shift. But here's the question you must ask yourself, and answer honestly. Will you stay spiritually awake, or will you drift at the very moment clarity is arriving? Because what happens next will not just affect your circumstances. It will affect your direction, your peace, your next season. And that is why Archangel Michael is calling you now, not later, not tomorrow, not when everything is obvious, but now, while the shift is still forming. He is not just announcing an ending. He is preparing you for an entrance. So stay still. Stay aware. Stay prayerful. Because July 9th is closer than you think, and what it carries is something your spirit has been waiting for longer than you realize. Type "I am ready for the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1707 is now activated. Here is something you need to understand, something that may shift the way you see everything you've been through. Because what felt like a delay, what felt like silence, what felt like you were being overlooked, forgotten, or even abandoned was never what it appeared to be. It was preparation. And not just any preparation. It was intentional, precise, and deeply spiritual preparation designed specifically for you. You see, when you're inside a difficult season, it rarely feels purposeful. It feels confusing. It feels heavy. It feels like you're walking in circles while everyone else seems to be moving forward. There were moments when you questioned yourself. Moments when you wondered if you made the wrong decisions. Moments when you felt like no matter how much you tried, nothing was shifting. But what you didn't see, what you couldn't see, was that something was being built within you while everything around you seemed still. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity here. The season you are leaving was not meant to break you. It was meant to shape you into someone who could carry what is coming next. Because what is coming next requires a different version of you. A stronger you. A more discerning you. A more grounded and spiritually aware you. And that version of you could not have been formed in comfort. Think about it. The pressure you felt wasn't random. The delays you experienced weren't pointless. The emotional battles you fought in silence weren't wasted. Every moment was refining something inside you. Your patience, your resilience, your ability to hear beyond noise, your capacity to stand even when nothing made sense. You were being trained. Quietly. Deeply. Repeatedly. And yes, there were days you felt like you were losing. Days you felt like giving up. Days you felt like you were carrying more than you could handle. But even in those moments, something in you refused to completely collapse. That wasn't coincidence. It was grace sustaining you when your strength ran out. Because this season was never about stopping you. It was about strengthening you. There were things that had to fall away. Old mindsets. Old attachments. Old expectations that no longer aligned with where you are going. And sometimes, the only way those things can truly leave is through discomfort. Through situations that force you to see differently. Through moments that push you to grow beyond what is familiar. That's why it felt so intense. That's why it felt so long. Because transformation is not instant. It is layered. And you have been moving through those layers, even when you didn't realize it. Archangel Michael reveals something deeper here. If the season had ended earlier, you would have stepped into your next level unprepared, and what was meant to elevate you could have overwhelmed you. So the delay was protection. The waiting was alignment. The struggle was refinement. You were not being denied. You were being developed. And now, as July 9th approaches, something begins to shift, not just around you but within you. You may not have all the answers yet. You may not see the full picture yet. But there is a quiet strength rising inside you. A steadiness that wasn't there before. A clarity that is beginning to form. That is the evidence that the season is ending. Because when a difficult season truly comes to a close, it doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. You are not the same person who entered this season. You don't think the same. You don't react the same. You don't tolerate the same. You see things differently now. And that difference is what qualifies you for what comes next. So do not resent what you went through. Do not dismiss it. Do not rush past it as if it had no meaning. Because every part of it carried purpose. Every moment contributed to who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is exactly who is needed for the next season of your life. This is why Archangel Michael says the difficult season is about to end. not because time simply passed, but because you have been prepared. Prepared to handle more. Prepared to discern more. Prepared to walk with greater awareness and strength. But hear this clearly: just because the season is ending does not mean you disengage. It means you remain steady. It means you stay aligned. It means you carry forward everything you've learned without slipping back into what you've outgrown. Because the same strength that carried you through the storm is the strength that will guide you into what's next. And this time you will not enter blindly. You will enter ready. Type "I understand the process" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2209 is now activated. There is a critical truth that many people overlook at the very moment things are about to change. They assume that when the end of a difficult season is near, they can relax their awareness, loosen their discipline, and finally let their guard down. But this is where many miss what was meant for them. Because the final stretch is not the easiest part. It is the most sensitive. And that is exactly why Archangel Michael is not just announcing an ending. He is issuing a warning. Stay prayerful. You must understand what that really means. This is not about routine words or empty repetition. This is about maintaining a spiritual connection, a state of awareness, a posture where you are not easily pulled away from clarity. Because right now, as you stand at the edge of transition, there are forces that would prefer you distracted rather than focused, passive rather than alert, disconnected rather than aligned. This is not meant to create fear. It is meant to create awareness. Because something happens when a season is about to end. The patterns that have been losing their hold begin to make one final attempt to reattach. Old thoughts may resurface. Old emotions may revisit you without warning. Situations that you thought were resolved might suddenly feel active again. People from your past may reappear, conversations may shift, and unexpected distractions may arise. And if you are not grounded, you may mistake these moments as signs that nothing has changed. But that would be a misunderstanding. These are not signs of regression. They are signs of release. Archangel Michael speaks with precision here. What tries to return now is not meant to remain. It is revealing what no longer has power over you. This is why prayer becomes essential in this moment. Not as an obligation, but as alignment. Prayer is what keeps your mind steady when emotions fluctuate. It is what keeps your perception clear when situations feel uncertain. It is what allows you to respond with wisdom instead of reacting out of habit. Because without that alignment, it becomes easy to fall back into patterns that you have already outgrown. And you did not come this far just to repeat what you were meant to leave behind. There is also something deeper happening here. As the difficult season ends, a new level of responsibility begins. A new level of awareness is required. You are not stepping back into the same life you had before. You are stepping into something that requires more discernment, more clarity, more intentional presence. And that cannot happen if your focus drifts. That is why this moment must be handled carefully. You may feel a mixture of emotions right now. Relief that something is ending. Uncertainty about what comes next. A quiet hope that things will finally shift. But alongside that, there may also be moments of doubt, moments where your thoughts become unsettled, moments where you question if you are truly ready. This is where prayer anchors you. It brings you back to center. It reminds you that you are not navigating this alone. Because the truth is, you are being guided, but guidance requires attention. Archangel Michael is not asking you to strive harder. He is asking you to remain connected, to stay aware of what you feel, what you sense, what is shifting both within you and around you. Because the clarity you need is already being released, but it can only be recognized when you are present enough to receive it. Do not treat this moment casually. Do not assume that because the season is ending, your effort is no longer required. This is where your consistency matters most. This is where your stillness becomes strength. This is where your awareness becomes protection. Because what is ahead is not just a change in circumstances, it is a change in direction. And direction requires clarity. It requires you to move with intention, not impulse. To respond with wisdom, not reaction. So remain grounded. Remain present. Remain prayerful. Because this final stretch is not about enduring anymore. It is about transitioning correctly. And how you move now will shape how you enter what comes next. Type "I stay aligned" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3309 is now activated. As this message settles into your spirit, understand this: what you are receiving is not just for you. It is meant to reach others who are standing at the same threshold, waiting for clarity, waiting for direction, waiting for a sign that their season is also shifting. When you choose to support this mission, you are not simply giving. You are sowing light into places where darkness has been lingering for far too long. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not distant scripture. It is a living promise speaking directly into your moment. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into obedience right now, and as you respond, you become part of that flow. Your support through PayPal, whether through the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, becomes a seed that multiplies across lives you may never see, but heaven fully records. This is not just generosity, it is alignment with purpose. Move as you feel led, and trust that what you release will return to you in ways that go beyond expectation. There is something you must come to terms with now, something that may completely change the way you interpret everything you have been through. Because the truth is, what you experienced was never just physical, never just emotional, and never just circumstantial. There has been a deeper layer to it all, a spiritual dimension operating quietly, consistently, and intentionally behind the scenes. And most of it you never saw. That is not because it wasn't there. It is because you were not meant to carry the weight of seeing it all at once. There are battles that take place beyond your awareness, not to hide the truth from you, but to protect your peace while the outcome is still being secured. And during this difficult season, there was far more happening around you than what was visible on the surface. Archangel Michael reveals this with clarity. What you called delay was often protection. What you called silence was often intervention. What you called confusion was often the result of a battle you were never meant to fight alone. Because while you were navigating your daily life, trying to make sense of situations that did not add up, something else was unfolding in parallel. There were moments when doors did not open the way you expected. Moments when plans fell apart without explanation. Moments when connections shifted, and you were left wondering why things could not just move forward smoothly. But what you could not see was how many things were being redirected, how many outcomes were being altered, how many unseen obstacles were being removed before they could fully reach you. There were paths you almost walked down that would have led to deeper frustration. There were decisions you almost made that would have complicated your journey further. There were people you almost trusted who were not aligned with where you are going. And in those moments when things did not work out, when something felt blocked or delayed, you may have felt disappointment. But that disappointment was often divine intervention in disguise. Because not everything that looks like an opportunity is meant to be pursued. Not everything that feels urgent is meant to be acted upon. And not everything that appears to be a setback is actually working against you. Some things are being held back until the timing is right. This is where the unseen battle becomes real. There has been a constant tension between what is trying to move you forward and what is attempting to keep you where you were. Not in an obvious way, not in a way that creates panic, but in subtle ways, through distraction, through doubt, through moments that pull your focus away from what truly matters. And yet, despite all of that, you are still here. You are still moving. You are still becoming more aware. That alone is evidence that something has been protecting you, guiding you, and holding you steady even when you felt uncertain. Archangel Michael does not present himself here as a distant figure. He stands as a presence that has been actively involved, not only in moments of crisis, but in moments you considered ordinary. Because often, the most significant protection does not come in dramatic ways. It comes in quiet redirections, subtle shifts, and decisions that feel small in the moment but carry long-term impact. There were times when you felt like you were standing still, like nothing was progressing. But what was actually happening was a form of stabilization. You were being held in place while certain conditions around you were being adjusted. Not everything could move forward at once. Some things had to be aligned first, and that alignment takes time. It requires patience. It requires trust in what you cannot see. This is why the season felt so layered. It was not just about what was happening to you, but about what was being arranged around you. Pieces were being moved into place. Situations were being recalibrated. Outcomes were being reshaped in ways that you could not fully perceive at the time. And now, as this season approaches its end, you begin to see the results of that unseen work. Not all at once, not in a way that answers every question immediately, but in small confirmations, in shifts in perspective, in a growing sense that something is finally changing. That is not coincidence. That is the result of everything that has been happening beneath the surface. So when you look back, do not only focus on what felt difficult. Do not only remember what felt uncertain or unresolved. Also recognize what did not happen. The situations you were spared from. The outcomes that could have unfolded differently. The paths that closed before they could lead you further in the wrong direction. Because sometimes, the greatest form of progress is what you were protected from, not just what you moved toward. And now, as you stand on the edge of transition, there is a deeper understanding forming within you. A recognition that you were never navigating this season alone. That even in moments of confusion, there was structure. Even in moments of stillness, there was movement. Even in moments of doubt, there was guidance. And that understanding is what allows you to move forward with greater clarity. Not because you have seen everything, but because you now trust that what you could not see was still working in your favor. Type "I trust what I couldn't see" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 4409 is now activated. There comes a moment, subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, when everything begins to feel different even though nothing around you has visibly changed yet. It is not something you can easily explain. It is not something others may immediately recognize. But within you, there is a quiet awareness forming, a sense that something is no longer the same. That is the shift. And you are standing in it now. Because when a difficult season begins to end, the transition does not always announce itself loudly. It does not always arrive with immediate clarity or instant results. Instead, it begins internally. It begins in your thoughts, in your emotions, in the way you respond to things that once overwhelmed you. You may have noticed this already. Situations that once strained you no longer hold the same power. Conversations that used to trigger you now feel easier to navigate. The urgency you once felt to control everything has softened into a quieter sense of trust. Even your reactions have changed. Where there was once frustration, there is now observation. Where there was once confusion, there is now a growing clarity. This is not accidental. This is the atmosphere shifting around you. Archangel Michael speaks into this moment with precision. The sign that your season is changing is not found first in your surroundings. It is found in your spirit. When you begin to respond differently, it is because you are no longer where you were. And that is what is happening now. You are no longer where you were. Even if your environment looks the same, even if certain circumstances have not fully resolved yet, you are not carrying them the same way. There is a detachment forming, not from responsibility, but from unnecessary weight. You are learning, perhaps without even realizing it, to hold things differently. And that is one of the clearest signs that a new season is approaching. Because before your external world shifts, your internal world must stabilize. You cannot step into something new while holding on to the same reactions, the same fears, the same patterns that belong to your previous season. So what is happening now is not random. It is a recalibration. Your thoughts are becoming clearer. Your emotions are becoming steadier. Your perspective is expanding beyond what you once believed was possible. And with that, your awareness is increasing. You may find yourself noticing things you overlooked before. Small details in conversations, subtle changes in people's behavior, a deeper understanding of situations that once confused you. This heightened awareness is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to prepare you, because clarity is one of the first gifts of a new season. But clarity requires stillness to be recognized. This is why you may also feel a pull toward quiet, a desire to step back from unnecessary noise, a need to create space where you can think, reflect, and simply be present. That is not isolation. That is alignment. Your spirit is adjusting to a different rhythm, and that rhythm does not match the pace of your past. There is also something else you may have felt, a subtle resistance to returning to old habits, old conversations, or old ways of thinking. Things that once felt normal may now feel out of place, not because they are inherently wrong, but because they no longer align with who you are becoming. This can feel uncomfortable at times, because growth often creates distance between who you were and who you are now. But that discomfort is not a sign of loss. It is a sign of movement. You are moving forward, even if it feels unfamiliar. Archangel Michael emphasizes this shift clearly. Do not try to fit into what you have already outgrown. What feels different now is meant to guide you, not confuse you. So instead of resisting the change, allow yourself to observe it. Allow yourself to move with it. You do not need to have everything figured out at once. You do not need to rush into decisions or force clarity where it is still forming. The shift is already in motion. Your role is to remain aware of it. Because as this new season approaches, there will be moments where you are invited to respond differently than you would have before. Moments where your old patterns may try to reappear, offering familiarity, offering comfort, but you will recognize them now. You will feel the difference, and in that recognition, you will have a choice to move forward or to momentarily step back. But even that awareness is progress. Even that choice is evidence that you are no longer operating from the same place. So trust what you are sensing. Trust the subtle changes within you. Trust the growing clarity, even if it is not complete yet. Because the shift you feel is not imagined. It is the beginning of a new season taking shape, quietly, steadily, and with intention. And as it continues to unfold, you will begin to see externally what you have already started to feel internally. Not all at once, but enough to know that you have crossed into something new. Type "I feel the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5509 is now activated. There is a moment that comes right before everything changes. A moment that many people misunderstand because it does not look like progress. It does not feel like relief. It does not resemble the breakthrough they have been waiting for. Instead, it often feels like pressure increasing, like emotions becoming heavier, like situations becoming more intense just when you thought things should finally ease. And this is where many people get discouraged, because they assume that if things are getting harder, it must mean something is wrong. But that is not always the case. In fact, in moments like this, the opposite is often true. What you are feeling right now is not a sign that you are going backward. It is a sign that you are standing at the edge of something significant. Archangel Michael reveals this with clarity. Before the release, there is always resistance. Not to stop you, but to test what you have learned. Because a breakthrough is not just about receiving something new. It is about becoming someone who can sustain it. And that requires a level of stability, awareness, and discipline that can only be confirmed under pressure. This is why things may feel more intense now. You may notice that your patience is being tested. Situations may arise that seem to challenge the very growth you have made. Old triggers may attempt to surface again. You may find yourself facing moments where you are tempted to react the way you used to fall back into patterns that once felt familiar. But here is the difference now. You are aware of it. You can see it happening. You can feel the pull, but you can also feel the choice. And that choice is where the test exists. Because this is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about whether you continue moving forward with what you have learned, or momentarily step back into what you have already outgrown. Archangel Michael does not present this as something to fear. He presents it as something to recognize. Because once you understand that this pressure has a purpose, it no longer feels like something working against you. It becomes something revealing you, revealing your growth, revealing your awareness, revealing your readiness. There is also something else happening beneath the surface. As you approach the end of this season, what no longer belongs in your life begins to lose its stability. And when something loses its stability, it does not always exit quietly. Sometimes it becomes more noticeable before it fades. Sometimes it creates one final moment of intensity before it releases completely. That intensity can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like things are unraveling. But what is actually happening is that what cannot move forward with you is being loosened from your path. This is why you must be careful not to misinterpret this moment. Do not assume that pressure means failure. Do not assume that difficulty means delay. And do not assume that discomfort means you are not ready. Because often, discomfort is simply the result of growth stretching beyond its previous limits. You are being stretched into a new level of awareness, a new level of stability, a new level of clarity. And stretching is not always comfortable. It requires adjustment. It requires patience with yourself. It requires you to move differently, even when it feels unfamiliar. This is where your discipline becomes important. Not discipline in the sense of forcing yourself, but in the sense of choosing your response intentionally. Choosing to pause instead of react. Choosing to observe instead of assume. Choosing to remain steady instead of being pulled in multiple directions. Because the pressure you feel is not there to break you. It is there to confirm you. To confirm that you are no longer who you were at the beginning of this season. To confirm that you have grown beyond your previous patterns. To confirm that you are capable of handling what is coming next. And what is coming next will require that stability. It will require the clarity. It will require that awareness. So when you feel the pressure rise, do not rush to escape it. Do not immediately try to resolve everything at once. Instead, take a moment to recognize what is being shown to you. Notice how you are responding. Notice what feels different. Notice where you are choosing differently than you would have before. Because those small shifts in your response are the evidence that you are passing this test. And the test is not about proving anything to others. It is about confirming something within yourself. That you are ready. That you are steady. That you are no longer controlled by what once influenced you. And once that confirmation is complete, the pressure begins to release. Not all at once, but gradually. Until what once felt heavy no longer holds the same weight. Until what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Until what once felt uncertain becomes clear. This is the moment you are moving through now. The final test before the breakthrough. And how you move through it will shape how you step into what comes next. So remain steady. Remain aware. Remain grounded in what you have learned. Because the pressure you feel is not your obstacle. It is your transition. Type I remain steady under pressure in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6609 is now activated. There is a point in every transition where effort alone is no longer enough. Where logic cannot fully guide you. Where even experience has its limits. And in that space, something deeper is required, something that does not come from external validation or visible proof. It's something whose faith, and not passive faith, not surface-level belief, but a grounded, steady, intentional trust that holds firm even when you do not yet see the outcome clearly. Because where you are right now, at the edge of this shifting season, what carries you forward is not certainty in what you can see, but confidence in what you have come to understand. Archangel Michael speaks with directness here. Faith is not the absence of uncertainty. It is the decision to move with clarity even when everything is not yet revealed. This is the space you are in now. You do not have every answer. You do not have every detail mapped out. But you do have enough awareness to recognize that something is changing. And with that awareness comes responsibility. Because once you begin to see differently, you are also called to act differently. This is where obedience enters. And obedience, in this moment, is not about large, dramatic actions. It is not about making sudden decisions or forcing outcomes. It is about the smaller, quieter choices that align you with what you already know is right for you. It is about choosing to step back from what no longer feels aligned, even if it once felt comfortable. It is about choosing to move forward with clarity, even when familiarity tries to pull you backward. It is about choosing to listen to that inner sense of direction, even when external voices suggest otherwise. These choices may seem subtle, but they are significant, because they shape the direction you move in. There may be moments where you feel a clear sense to pause instead of rushing. Moments where you feel guided to observe rather than react. Moments where you recognize that something you once accepted no longer fits into your current understanding. And in those moments, your response matters. Not because you are being judged, but because you are being aligned. Alignment does not happen automatically. It happens through repeated, consistent decisions that reflect your awareness. Archangel Michael emphasizes this clearly. You are not being asked to do more. You are being asked to move with intention. This means being aware of your thoughts, your reactions, your patterns. It means recognizing when something is pulling you away from your center and gently bringing yourself back. It means not allowing temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions. Because emotions will fluctuate. Situations will shift. But your direction must remain steady. There is also a deeper layer to this. Faith and obedience together create stability. Faith keeps you grounded when things feel uncertain. Obedience keeps you aligned when choices need to be made. And when these two are working together, you begin to move with a level of clarity that does not depend on constant reassurance. You begin to trust your process. You begin to recognize when something is right for you and when it is not. You begin to move with less hesitation and more intention. This does not mean everything becomes easy. It means everything becomes clearer. And clarity allows you to navigate challenges without losing your direction. You may still encounter moments where doubt tries to surface. Moments where you question if you are making the right choice. Moments where the unfamiliar feels uncomfortable. But in those moments, faith reminds you that you are not starting from the beginning. You are moving forward from everything you have already learned. And obedience reminds you to act in alignment with that understanding. Together, they keep you moving. Together, they keep you steady. And together, they prepare you for what is ahead. Because what is ahead is not just a continuation of where you have been. It is an expansion of your awareness, your opportunities, your direction. And expansion requires stability. It requires you to stand firm in what you have come to know, even when you are stepping into something new. So do not underestimate the importance of this moment. Do not assume that small decisions do not matter, because it is in these small decisions that your next season is being shaped. Every time you choose clarity over confusion, every time you choose patience over urgency, every time you choose alignment over familiarity, you are strengthening your position. You are confirming your readiness. And you are moving closer to what has been prepared for you. So remain grounded in your faith. Remain intentional in your actions. Remain aware of what you are choosing, moment by moment. Because heaven is not asking you to rush. Heaven is asking you to align. And alignment is what will carry you forward with clarity, stability, and purpose. Type "I walk in faith" and alignment in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7709 is now activated. There is a moment, after endurance, after pressure, after quiet persistence, when something begins to open, not gradually in a way that goes unnoticed, but in a way that feels distinct, undeniable, and deeply aligned with everything you have just come through. This is the moment where what once felt delayed begins to move, where what once felt blocked begins to clear, where what once felt distant begins to come within reach. And that moment is closer than you think, because as this difficult season reaches its end, there is not just closure taking place, there is release. A release of opportunity, a release of clarity, a release of direction that was not accessible to you before, not because it was withheld, but because the timing had not yet aligned with who you were becoming. Archangel Michael speaks into this transition with precision. What is opening for you now could not have been sustained by who you were before. It is being released now because you are ready to receive it differently. This is what you must understand. What is coming is not entirely new in the sense that it was never meant for you. It has always been part of your path. But the version of you that exists now is finally aligned with it. And alignment is what allows access. You may begin to notice this in subtle ways at first. A conversation that leads somewhere meaningful. A situation that begins to resolve with unexpected ease. A door that opens without the resistance you once experienced. These moments may seem small individually, but together they form a pattern that signals movement. Movement that was not present before. Movement that confirms something has shifted. Because when favor begins to move, it does not always announce itself loudly. It often begins quietly, through moments that feel natural, almost effortless compared to what you have previously experienced. Things begin to connect in ways that require less force. Decisions become clearer. Opportunities appear without the same level of struggle. This is not coincidence. This is alignment in motion. But there is something important you must remain aware of. Just because things begin to open does not mean you disengage from your awareness. In fact, this is where your awareness becomes even more important. Because not every opportunity is meant to be pursued, even in a season of opening. Discernment remains essential. Archangel Michael emphasizes this clearly. Favor does not remove the need for awareness. It increases the importance of it. Because when multiple doors begin to open, your direction matters. You are not meant to move in every direction at once. You are meant to move intentionally, guided by the clarity you have developed through everything you have just experienced. This is why your preparation was necessary. This is why your patience was required. Because without that foundation, these openings could become overwhelming instead of beneficial. But now, you are able to recognize what aligns and what does not. You are able to move with intention instead of urgency. You are able to choose based on clarity instead of impulse. And that is what allows favor to work effectively in your life. There is also a restoration aspect to this release. Things that felt lost, whether they were opportunities, time, or even a sense of direction, begin to return in a different form. Not necessarily in the exact way they left, but in a way that carries more stability, more clarity, and more purpose. Because restoration is not about returning you to the past. It is about positioning you correctly in the present. You may find that what once felt out of reach is now within your grasp. That what once felt complicated now feels manageable. That what once felt uncertain now feels clear enough to move forward. This is the evidence of favor at work. Not in dramatic shifts alone, but in the steady, consistent movement that replaces stagnation. And as this continues, your confidence will grow. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because you begin to trust your ability to navigate what is in front of you. You begin to recognize that you are no longer operating from the same level of uncertainty. You are moving with a sense of direction that was not present before. This is what you have been prepared for. This is what the previous season was leading toward. So as things begin to open, do not rush. Do not feel pressured to act immediately on everything that appears. Take the same awareness, the same patience, the same clarity that carried you through the difficult season and apply it here. Because how you move in a season of release is just as important as how you endured a season of resistance. And this time, you are not navigating blindly. You are moving with understanding. You are moving with alignment. And you are stepping into what has been waiting for you, not as who you were, but as who you have become. Type "I receive what is opening for me" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8809 is now activated. As this moment of opening unfolds in your life, understand that what is being released through you is not meant to stop with you. Every word spoken, every message received, is a seed that carries light into someone else's darkness, and when you choose to give, you are stepping into that flow of multiplication. The word declares that when you sow, you will also reap, and this is not distant truth. It is a living promise moving through your obedience right now. I feel this strongly. I am taking action in this moment, and as you respond, you become part of a greater work that reaches beyond what you can see. Your support through PayPal, whether through the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, becomes a channel through which clarity, hope, and direction reach those who are still searching. This is not just support, it is participation in something purposeful. Move now with intention, and allow what you release to return to you in ways that are aligned, multiplied, and undeniable. There is a truth that becomes unavoidable as you step into a new season, a truth that does not always feel comfortable, but is absolutely necessary for your progress. Not everything that has been part of your life can move forward with you. Not every connection, not every habit, not every pattern is meant to exist in the space you are entering now. And the deeper you go into this transition, the clearer this becomes. Because growth creates separation, not always in a dramatic or visible way, but in a quiet, internal shift where you begin to recognize that certain things no longer fit. Conversations that once felt normal now feel draining. Environments that once felt familiar now feel restrictive. Patterns you once followed without question now feel misaligned with who you are becoming. This is not rejection. This is recognition. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity here. You are not losing what is meant for you. You are releasing what cannot grow with you. And this is where many people struggle. Because letting go is not always about something being obviously wrong. Sometimes it is simply about something no longer being right for where you are now. And that distinction can feel difficult to accept, especially when there is history involved, familiarity involved, or emotional attachment involved. But you must understand this. Holding on to what no longer aligns will slow your movement into what does. There are patterns that have repeated in your life, cycles that have shown up in different forms, situations that felt familiar even when the details changed. And during this past season, many of those patterns were revealed to you more clearly than before. Not so you could analyze them endlessly, but so you could recognize them and choose differently. Because awareness without change keeps you in the same place. And you are no longer in a place where repeating the same cycles will bring you forward. This is why certain things now feel uncomfortable to maintain. Because your awareness has outgrown them. You may notice that your tolerance for certain behaviors has shifted. Things you once overlooked now stand out. Dynamics you once accepted now feel imbalanced. And while this can create moments of internal conflict, it is actually a sign that your discernment has strengthened. You are seeing clearly. And once you see clearly, you cannot return to seeing the same way again. Archangel Michael emphasizes this transition. Do not confuse familiarity with alignment. What had been familiar is not always what is meant to remain. This applies not only to people, but also to your own habits, your own ways of thinking, your own internal patterns. There are beliefs you carried that no longer reflect your current understanding. There are reactions that once felt automatic that now feel unnecessary. There are ways of approaching situations that no longer serve your direction. And these patterns must be released as well. Because your external environment reflects your internal state. If you continue to operate from old patterns internally, you will continue to attract similar patterns externally. But when you shift internally, your external reality begins to shift as well. This is where your responsibility becomes clear. You are not being asked to force distance or create separation out of impulse. You are being asked to observe honestly and respond intentionally. To recognize what aligns with your direction and what does not. To allow space where space is needed. To step back where stepping back creates clarity. And this may not always be understood by others. There may be moments where your choices are questioned, where your distance is misinterpreted, where your silence is misunderstood. But not everything requires explanation. Not everything requires validation from those who are not on the same path of awareness. Because this is not about them. This is about your alignment. And alignment sometimes requires quiet decisions that are not publicly announced, but privately maintained. There is also something important to remember. Letting go does not always mean removing everything completely. Sometimes it means changing how you engage, changing the level of access something has to you, changing the way you respond, the energy you give, the space you allow. Because not every adjustment needs to be extreme, but every adjustment needs to be intentional. As you move forward, you will feel this more clearly. You will sense when something feels aligned and when it does not. You will recognize when something supports your direction and when it subtly pulls you away from it. And in those moments, your choice matters. Not because one decision defines everything, but because repeated choices shape your path. This is the moment where you step fully into your awareness, where you trust what you see, where you act on what you understand. Because the season you are entering cannot hold what the previous season required. It requires clarity. It requires discernment. It requires you to move without carrying unnecessary weight. And that means releasing what no longer belongs. Not with resistance, not with frustration, but with understanding. Because you are not losing something valuable. You are making space for something aligned, and that space is where your next season begins to fully unfold. Type "I release what no longer aligns" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9909 is now activated. There is a question that has quietly followed you through this entire season, even if you have not spoken it out loud. A question that has surfaced in moments of reflection, in moments of frustration, and even in moments of silence. It is the question of what was lost. What slipped through your hands? What did not happen when it should have? What felt taken, delayed, or redirected without explanation? And while you have continued moving forward, there has still been a part of you that wondered, will it ever come back? Will what was meant for you ever find its way to you again? This is where understanding must deepen. Because restoration does not always look like returning something exactly as it was. It is not always about going back to a previous moment and reliving it differently. True restoration is about something being returned in a way that aligns with who you are now, not who you were then. Archangel Michael speaks into this with clarity. What was lost was not removed from your path. It was repositioned for the right time, so it could return with greater stability and purpose. This changes everything, because it means nothing that was truly meant for you has been permanently taken away. It means that even in moments where you felt like you missed an opportunity, or when something did not unfold the way you expected, it was not the end of that possibility. It was a redirection of it. You may not have been ready then. The timing may not have been aligned then. The conditions may not have supported it then. But that does not mean it was removed from your future. It means it was being held until the right alignment could occur. And now, as this difficult season comes to a close, restoration begins to move. Not all at once. Not in a way that overwhelms you, but in a steady, intentional way that allows you to recognize it clearly. You may begin to see opportunities reappear in different forms. You may find yourself revisiting ideas, paths, or possibilities that once felt out of reach. You may experience moments where something familiar returns, but this time, it feels different, more stable, more aligned, more grounded. That is restoration, not repetition, but renewal. Because restoration does not bring you back to where you were. It brings you forward with what you have gained. And what you have gained in this season is significant. You have gained awareness. You have gained discernment. You have gained the ability to recognize what aligns and what does not. And with that, you are able to engage with what returns in a completely different way. There is also an emotional aspect to this restoration. There were moments where your confidence was shaken, where your clarity felt clouded, where your sense of direction felt uncertain. And as restoration begins, those internal areas begin to stabilize as well. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to feel grounded in your decisions. You begin to move with a sense of assurance that was not present before. This internal restoration is just as important as anything external, because without it, even the best opportunities can feel uncertain. But with it, even unfamiliar paths can feel manageable. Archangel Michael emphasizes this clearly. What returns to you will not confuse you. It will confirm you. This is how you will recognize it. It will not feel forced. It will not feel unstable. It will not create the same level of doubt you once experienced. Instead, it will feel aligned. It will feel like something that fits into your current understanding. Something that supports your direction rather than complicates it. And this is important, because not everything that appears is restoration. Some things may look similar to what you once had, but if they do not align with who you are now, they are not meant to be re-engaged. This is where your discernment continues to guide you. You are not returning to your past. You are receiving what belongs in your present. And that distinction matters, because your present self is more aware, more stable, and more intentional than before. So as restoration unfolds, allow it to come naturally. Do not rush it. Do not try to force it into a specific form. Trust that what is meant to return will do so in a way that supports your growth, not challenges it unnecessarily. Because restoration is not about replacing what was lost. It is about realigning you with what has always been part of your path. And now, you are able to receive it fully. Not with hesitation, not with confusion, but with clarity. And that clarity is what makes this restoration different from anything you have experienced before. Type "I receive my restoration" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated. There is something deeper happening beneath everything you have experienced. Something that goes beyond circumstances, beyond situations, beyond what has changed around you. Because while it may seem like this season was about endurance, about waiting, about navigating difficulty, the true transformation has been happening within you. And now you are not who you were. This is not a motivational statement. This is a reality that has been forming quietly, consistently, and intentionally through every moment you have walked through. Because identity does not shift overnight. It is shaped through experience. It is refined through pressure. It is clarified through awareness. And everything you have been through has been contributing to the shift. Archangel Michael speaks with authority here. You cannot step into what is prepared for you while holding on to who you used to be. The season has changed because you have changed. This is what you must recognize now. You are no longer operating from the same mindset that once questioned everything. You are no longer reacting from the same emotional patterns that once controlled your responses. You are no longer viewing your life from the same limited perspective that once kept you uncertain. Something has shifted. You think differently now. You process situations differently now. You respond with more awareness, even if it still feels unfamiliar at times. And that unfamiliarity is not a sign of confusion. It is a sign of transformation. Because growth often feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. You may notice that the way you approach decisions has changed. Where you once looked for immediate answers, you now allow space for clarity to form. Where you once reacted quickly, you now pause, observe, and respond with intention. Where you once sought validation externally, you now rely more on your internal sense of alignment. This is the new identity taking shape. And it is not something you need to force. It is something you are already stepping into. There is also a quiet confidence, beginning to form within you. Not loud, not forced, not dependent on external approval, but steady. A confidence that comes from knowing you have navigated something difficult and emerged with greater awareness. That confidence is not about believing everything will be easy. It is about knowing you can handle what comes. And that is what makes it powerful. Archangel Michael emphasizes this clearly. Your strength is no longer in proving yourself. It is in knowing yourself. This is where your identity shifts from external validation to internal clarity. You no longer need to explain every decision. You no longer need to justify every change. You no longer need to hold on to what no longer aligns just to maintain familiarity. Because you understand now. You understand what works for you. You understand what supports your direction. You understand what does not belong in your next season. And with that understanding comes a different way of moving. A more intentional way. A more grounded way. A way that is not easily shaken by temporary situations. This does not mean you will not face challenges. It means challenges will not define you the way they once did. Because your identity is no longer tied to what happens around you. It is grounded in what you have developed within you. There is also a sense of responsibility that comes with this shift. Not in a heavy or overwhelming way, but in a clear and steady way. You are aware now that your choices matter. That your direction is shaped by how you respond, how you think, how you act. And that awareness changes how you move. You are not moving blindly anymore. You are moving consciously. Every step you take now carries intention. Every decision reflects your understanding. Every moment becomes an opportunity to reinforce who you are becoming. And that is what solidifies this new identity. Not a single moment, but consistent alignment over time. As you continue forward, you may still feel moments where your old identity tries to reappear. Old thoughts, old reactions, old ways of seeing things may surface briefly, but they will not feel the same, because they no longer fit. And that is how you will know you have truly changed. Not because the old disappears completely, but because it no longer defines you. Archangel Michael reminds you, do not return to who you were just because it feels familiar. You have already outgrown that version of yourself. So as you step into this new season, carry this awareness with you. You are not starting over. You are moving forward as someone who has been refined, strengthened, and prepared. Someone who understands more. Someone who sees more clearly. Someone who moves with intention rather than uncertainty. And that identity is what will allow you to fully step into what is ahead. Not with hesitation, but with clarity. Not with doubt, but with steady confidence. Because you are no longer becoming. You are stepping into who you have already become. Type "I embrace who I have become" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated. Now you stand at the threshold. Not at the beginning. Not in the middle. But at the edge of something that has been forming for longer than you realize. And this is where everything must come together. Because while you have endured the season, while you have grown through the pressure, while you have developed awareness, clarity, and strength, there is one final instruction that cannot be overlooked. Stay prayerful. Not as a suggestion, not as a routine, but as a necessity for what comes next. Because transition is not just about leaving something behind. It is about entering something new correctly. And how you enter determines how you experience what comes. Archangel Michael speaks now with a tone that is both steady and unmistakably firm. Do not disconnect at the moment of arrival. What you have reached requires the same awareness that carried you here. This is where many become careless. They feel relief. They feel movement. They feel the shift. And slowly, without realizing it, they begin to lower their awareness. They become less intentional, less present, less grounded in what brought them through the difficult season. And in doing so, they create unnecessary instability in what was meant to be a stable transition. But that will not be your story, because you are aware now. You understand now. You recognize that what you have stepped into requires consistency, not just arrival. There is a reason the instruction remains the same. Stay prayerful, because prayer, in this moment, is not about asking for something new. It is about maintaining alignment with what has already been set in motion. It is about staying connected to your clarity, your awareness, your direction. It is about ensuring that as things begin to open, as restoration continues, as opportunities unfold, you remain grounded in the same understanding that brought you here. Because without that grounding, it becomes easy to move too quickly, to say yes without clarity, to engage without discernment, to allow the pace of change to pull you out of alignment. But with that grounding, everything becomes steady. You move with intention. You respond with awareness. You navigate with clarity. This is how the transition is sealed. Not through force, not through urgency, but through consistency, through presence, through a continued connection to what you know is right for you. You may feel the temptation to rush forward now, to make up for lost time, to accelerate into everything that is opening. But understand this: what is meant for you does not require urgency to be maintained. It requires alignment to be sustained. And alignment comes from remaining connected. Archangel Michael emphasizes this final truth. What is ahead of you is not fragile, but your awareness determines how you hold it. This means that what is being released into your life is stable. It is real. It is aligned. But your experience of it depends on how you engage with it. Whether you remain present or become distracted. Whether you move intentionally or react impulsively. And this is why this final call matters. Because you have come too far to lose clarity now. You have grown too much to return to old patterns now. You have developed too much awareness to move without intention now. So as this transition completes, carry everything you have learned with you. Carry the patience. Carry the discernment. Carry the awareness. Carry the stillness that allowed you to hear clearly. Because this is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a new phase of it. A phase where you are no longer navigating from uncertainty, but from understanding. A phase where you are no longer reacting to life, but responding with intention. A phase where you are no longer searching for direction, but walking in it. And that is what makes this moment significant. Not just because something ended, but because you are ready for what begins. So remain steady. Remain aware. Remain prayerful. Because what has been prepared for you is now within reach, and you are fully equipped to walk into it with clarity, strength, and purpose. Type "I remain prayerful" and aligned in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated. As this message seals something within you, understand that what just reached your spirit is not meant to stay contained. It is meant to flow outward and touch lives that are still searching for this same clarity. When you give, you are not supporting a channel. You are sowing into a movement where light reaches those still walking through darkness, and heaven multiplies every seed you release. The word speaks clearly that when you give, it returns pressed down and overflowing, and this promise is alive in this very moment, calling you into action. I feel led to say this directly. I am stepping into this now, and as you respond, you become part of this divine exchange. Your support through PayPal, through the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, becomes a channel through which messages like this continue to reach those who need awakening. This is not just an offering, it is alignment with purpose and timing. Step into this moment and release your seed, because what you activate through obedience will return to you in multiplied form.